Deep in the forests of Zurich's lowlands, we meet this strange, almost alien-like creature. It is one of few remaining species of front-wheel drive predators, sitting by the roadside and patiently waiting for its unsuspecting and often larger prey, naive enough to cut through these woods.
It is double premiere day today. Not only is this the first time ever I'm reviewing a car that is not mine, it is also the first time ever I'm reviewing a car that is on sale today. It is the 2021 Honda Civic Type R. Now, a lot has been said and written about this car already, and this usually means it is very talented, but also a bit ugly. Now, I seem to be the only adult on the planet who likes it, but let me put it this way. If Lamborghini made a hot hatchback, isn't this what it would look like? And this becomes evident when you drive through town. People turn their heads. This never happens in the M2 or the M5. The car underwent a facelift for the 2020 model year, and as you'd expect, there have been a few cosmetic changes like these blades in front and back bumpers. Honda also addressed the vent fakery a bit. But I'm also not the sort of person to obsess about fake vents. I mean, I'm already in the acceptance phase of fake exhaust tips. Or is it depression? But there also have been functional changes to the outside of the car. Pre-facelift models were reported to suffer from thermal issues when pushed hard. With marginally bigger grills, this should be sorted now. But the most important changes have been made to the chassis. So let's find out. You have to admire Honda for how they went about this facelift. They did not address any of the criticism at all. They did not look into the outdated infotainment system. They did not address its outrageous looks. None of that nonsense. They did what nobody thought was wrong in the first place. They thought, you know what, we really should work on the handling of this car. And man, have they delivered. I had the chance to drive a pre-facelift model 2 years ago. And although it was a cold and greasy winter day and the car was on winter tires, I was impressed by its composure. Now, 2 years later, I am sitting in a facelifted car on Sport Contact 6s, and yes, it is even better. So usually I like to talk about 4 human-machine interfaces, and I'm not talking about the infotainment system. I'm talking about the seats, the steering, the pedals, and the gear knob, if applicable, because this becomes rarer and rarer these days. Let's kick things off with the seats. The seats are very comfortable. Although they are super sporty and hold you super tight, you really can imagine spending a few kilometers in these. I already prefer them over the ones in the Touran, but this should not come as a surprise. If you think the red Alcantara is a bit too much, you can spec the Sportline package, which comes with a smaller rear wing, the black seats and smaller wheels, so you do not exactly advertise the fact that you are driving a Civic Type R. The next thing I noticed was the steering, and I'm not talking about the steering wheel being clad in Alcantara. They must have done something to it. I am not sure if it is the weighting or it's the bushings all around, or maybe even about the revised suspension geometry, but the steering feels really good and intuitive. And I know this is a an interesting point to make on a motorway, but it really works. It is really enjoyable. Okay, this is ridiculous. I need to get off the motorway. I'm talking about the steering wheel and how it feels, and I'm just going straight. Let's talk about the gear shift. So they changed the shape of the gear knob, but they also played with the weighting of it. And the result is a really satisfying gear shift. It is a joyous thing to work, and you have to work it because the gearing is rather short. But you do not mind at all. Well, the only remaining part is the pedals. Now, I am not an authority on pedal feel and spacing. I mean, I cannot heel and toe. So, what is there to say other than, I think if you don't notice them, they're doing their job. Okay, we are on better roads now, and you can really notice the torque steer, or the lack thereof. I'm sure you have watched Engineering Explained's video on why the Civic Type R does not have any torque steer. And it really works. If you're not coming out exactly of a very tight corner, you would never know that it's a front-wheel drive car. I love it when a car gives you so much confidence in its front end, and that immediately. Okay, the engine does not sound very nice. You know, it has a ton of power, but it's nothing like the old Type R engines. I mean, I have never driven an old Type R, but I've heard them. And isn't that what you want from your Civic Type R? You want to thrash them. And it's almost like this car also would love to have an engine like that, because it certainly has the chassis for it. Let's talk a bit about the driving modes. As I mentioned, when you start up, the car is in its default mode, which is Sport, which comes with this nicely weighted steering, enough throttle response, and well, the dampers, yeah, maybe we should talk about the damping. So it is rather stiffly sprung, and the dampers help a bit, and you realize the difference between comfort and sport, but I think it isn't enough to offset the drawbacks of comfort. So it is rather lethargic in comfort mode, and the steering is too light, and yeah, so I found myself not bothering with it. So sometimes when you come up to a nice road, you feel like pushing a button, so you put it in plus R mode, but it does not add a whole lot. So yeah, the damping is a bit stiffer, the steering is a bit more weighted, but it's not a fundamental change. Actually, I would say that the only creature comfort missing is heated seats. And I see why they left them out, because, well, the seats don't have any electronics in them at all, which means you can sit lower, the seats are lighter, and all in all I think it's a good choice. And Alcantara is probably also a pretty benign material when it comes to your bum thermometer. Other than that, the car comes with lane keep assist, with adaptive cruise control. I mentioned the adaptive damping. What else do we have here? Yeah, you have a reversing camera, you have park sensors. This thing has more kit than my M2, so yeah, I don't know what else they could have put in here. Actually, maybe it's the other way around. So this is the GT Spec Type R, which comes with all these gadgets. If you can do without them, you can get the non-GT car, which saves you, I think, about 4,000 Swiss francs, if I'm not mistaken. But I also have to say, I have never seen a non-GT Type R. So maybe they may be a myth. Then there's, of course, the limited edition that comes without, what is it, aircon and infotainment. Well, you can sort of do without the infotainment, but aircon, I'm not sure. But apparently they have managed to shave 50 kilograms off this car's weight. That is, I mean, which is already quite light for a modern car, I would say. It is roughly 1400 kilograms, which is not bad. I think power to weight ratio must be something rather close to the BMW M2. Earlier I said something about a partner to a manual gearbox being the third pedal, but what it usually also accompanies a manual gearbox is also a manual handbrake, which the Civic Type R does not have, and it just feels a bit odd. It's not like I was going to pull any slides with it. It just feels wrong. Well, maybe on the topic of things being wrong, there are a few things wrong with it, and I'm not talking about the looks. It is sort of the engine. Well, there's nothing wrong with the engine. It has plenty of power and produces plenty of torque. And of course, I'm not sure how Honda would have been able to address this. It's just that everything is so crisp and so sharp. And if you remember, one of my favorite things about the M5 is its throttle response, which you cannot have with the turbocharged engine. It just feels like this car was craving a naturally aspirated engine. Honda has done a tremendous job on this Civic Type R. I am looking forward to, or I hope the S2000 that was rumored a few months ago is going to happen, because I would love to drive a rear-wheel drive car that handles like this. Well done, Honda. I'm impressed. I really am impressed. Not that my praise means anything, but this is a joyous thing to drive. Even though it puts you up to mischief, because you're constantly looking for other cars to pick a fight. I remember the day I picked up the car. There was an Audi R8 in front of me, and I was hoping he would punch it so I could latch onto its tail, but yeah, didn't.
If you have watched any of my previous reviews, you will have noticed that I tend to get a bit dramatic towards the end of them. Today is no different, but I also think it is more justified than ever. I spoke to a friend of mine recently who works at a Honda dealership. He said if M3s and M4s become more expensive in the future due to CO2 regulations, people will still buy them, and it won't make much of a difference. If Ferraris become vastly more expensive, it will be the same. But if Type Rs become a bit more expensive, it will make a difference and people won't buy them anymore.